Sharpsburg, Maryland, September 17, 1862, late afternoon. Photographer Alexander Gardner adjusts his bulky stereo camera, the lens staring down at a tangle of bodies along the Hagerstown Pike. They are Confederate soldiers, fallen hours before near a simple whitewashed church. He makes an exposure. The wet collodion plate captures it all: the mud, the torn uniforms, the awkward stillness of death. It is chaos, horror, and waste, frozen in an emulsion of silver and glass. This is the Battle of Antietam. But Gardner doesn't know something. He doesn't know that 30 years from now, another group of men from Washington will stand in this exact same spot. They won't carry cameras. They will carry plain tables and survey chains, and their job will not be to record the war's chaos, but to erase it. Look at this image. This is a map of the Antietam battlefield. It's beautiful, precise, almost elegant. Here are the Union forces marked in blue. Here are the Confederate forces in red. Little blocks for infantry, crossed markings for artillery. The gentle sweep of hills is captured in 20-foot contour lines. It's clean. It's scientific. It's a solved problem on a sheet of paper. Now look at Alexander Gardner's photographs taken on the same ground, the bodies in the sunken road, the dead artillerists by the Dunker Church. This is chaos, unsolvable and obscene. How did the most traumatic, bloody, and contested landscapes in American history become so orderly, so uniform, so standardized? The starting gun for this massive project was fired on August 19, 1890. On that day, the United States Congress passed an act to establish the first great national military park, Chickamauga and Chattanooga. The text of that law is explicit about the park's purpose. It was to be a place for historical and professional military study. Hold on to that phrase. It's the key to everything. The 1890s were the height of the reconciliation movement. 3 decades after the war, the dominant national narrative was shifting. It was a time to heal the wounds, to bring the North and South back together. This narrative focused on the shared heroism and martial valor of the white soldiers on both sides, celebrating their courage while strategically downplaying the very reasons they were fighting. The cause of the war, slavery, and its primary result, emancipation, were pushed to the margins of the story. The new battlefield parks were to be the physical embodiment of this reconciliation. They were conceived as open-air military classrooms. To manage them, the War Department established battlefield commissions, like the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park Commission. Crucially, these commissions were composed of veterans from both the Union and Confederate armies, former enemies, now colleagues, working together to preserve the sites where they had tried to kill one another. Their mandate was not to relitigate the war, but to commemorate it as a great, tragic yet noble contest of military skill. And to do that, they needed a tool that was as objective, scientific, and nonpartisan as possible. They needed the perfect map. The responsibility for creating these maps fell to the U.S. Army's Office of the Chief of Engineers. This choice guaranteed a high level of technical skill and, more importantly, a high degree of uniformity. The methods used at Antietam would be the methods used at Shiloh and Gettysburg. But what were those methods? What exactly did they standardize? It begins with a book. Published between 1891 and 1895, the atlas to accompany the official records of the Union and Confederate armies is a monumental work. Its 175 plates compiled and redrew hundreds of wartime maps into a consistent format. This atlas became the visual grammar book for the new battlefield surveys. It established the colors, the symbols, the entire way of seeing a battle. The battlefield mapmakers took this grammar and applied it to the ground with scientific rigor. They used a technique called plain table surveying. Teams of engineers and topographers would walk the actual fields. A surveyor like Edward E. Hayden, who led the Antietam survey team from 1894, would set up a drawing board on a tripod. Using an alidade, a type of ruler with a telescope, he would sight points in the landscape: a fence line, the corner of a barn, a bend in a creek. Each point would be painstakingly measured and plotted on site in real time. This on-the-ground method allowed for incredible accuracy. Hayden's team produced 14 manuscript map sheets for Antietam alone, capturing the battlefield as it was in the 1890s. That data was then rendered according to a strict set of standards. First, scale. The published Antietam Atlas used a uniform scale of 1:10,560. That's exactly 6 inches on the map to 1 mile on the ground. Every tactical feature could be rendered in precise, mathematical relation to every other. Second, terrain. The maps used contour lines to represent the three-dimensional battlefield. At Antietam, the standard was a 20-foot contour interval, meaning each line represents a 20-foot change in elevation. This turned hills and valleys from artistic sketches into measurable, scientific data. Third, symbology. This is the grammar of the Atlas made real. Union forces are always blue, Confederates are always red. A solid rectangle is an infantry unit. A rectangle with a slash is cavalry. A small icon of crossed cannon barrels denotes an artillery battery. These symbols were used to show the positions of units at specific dates and times, creating a step-by-step animation of the battle on a static page. Everything from the style used for woods and orchards to the symbol for a stone fence was standardized. The result was a set of documents that could be read like a technical manual. An officer from any army in any country could look at these maps and understand the tactical situation at a glance. They were masterpieces of military cartography. To see the power and the purpose of this system, you have to look at the parks side by side. The standardization was uniform, but it was also intelligent. Let's return to Antietam. The 20-foot contour interval was perfect for its rolling landscape. It clearly showed the high ground where artillery was placed, the shallow depression of the sunken road, and the steep bluffs overlooking Burnside's bridge. For a military student, the map immediately reveals why these places were so fiercely contested. The terrain dictated the tactics, and the map makes the terrain legible. But now look at the maps made for the Gettysburg National Military Park. They look similar, following the same color codes and symbols. The survey was led by Emmer B. Cope for the Gettysburg Commission and published in 1895, but there's a crucial difference. The scale here is 1:12,000, slightly smaller, but the contour interval is much finer, instead of 20 feet. The standard interval on the main Gettysburg battlefield maps is just 5 feet. Why the change? Why abandon the standard? Because the standard was less important than the purpose, creating the perfect tool for military study. The Battle of Gettysburg was defined by a series of low, subtle ridges, Seminary Ridge, Cemetery Ridge, and the critical hill of Little Round Top. A 20-foot contour interval would have smoothed over these features, making them appear less significant than they were. A 5-foot interval, however, captures the slight but crucial slopes that provided cover for advancing troops and offered commanding fields of fire for defenders. The decision to use a 5-foot interval was a deliberate choice. The mapmakers knew that to understand Gettysburg, a student of war needed to see the land with greater precision. It shows that this was not a mindless bureaucratic process. It was a highly intelligent, focused effort to create a specific kind of historical tool. The goal was to render the war as a pure problem of tactics, terrain, and troop movements, and in that, the project was a stunning success. But every engineering decision is also a decision about what to exclude. Here is the map created by Edward Hayden's team. You can see the church, marked as a small square. You can see the neat lines of blue and red blocks representing the Union and Confederate brigades that fought for this ground. You see the tidy hash marks of the fences, the green tint of the woods. It is a portrait of order. Now here again are Alexander Gardner's photographs, taken in the same location just after the battle. Bodies lie contorted along the roadway. The view is not of orderly brigades, but of individual broken men. The ground is not a neat grid of contours, but a churned mess of mud and debris. The map, for all its scientific precision, has erased this reality completely. When you look at what these maps standardized, you must also look at what they systematically omitted. There are no symbols for mass graves, no markers for the locations of temporary field hospitals where thousands of men had limbs amputated without anesthetic. The destruction of civilian property, barns burned, crops trampled, homes perforated by shell fire, is absent unless a structure served as a tactical landmark. The presence of non-combatants, from terrified civilians to the African Americans who followed the Union Army seeking freedom, is nowhere to be found. The war's entire human dimension, the suffering, the chaos, the political stakes, the dirt, blood, and horror, is gone. It has been abstracted away in the service of creating a clean, technical narrative. This was not a conspiracy. It was the logical outcome of a project defined by its stated purpose, to create a resource for historical and professional military study. In military science, individual death is a statistic. A dead soldier is a casualty, a reduction in unit strength. The soldier's humanity, his personal story, his political beliefs, these are not tactically relevant variables, so they do not appear on the map. By focusing exclusively on troop movements and terrain, the maps helped build the very reconciliationist story they were created to serve. A story where the war was not a messy, ideological conflict over human bondage, but a grand, tactical chess match between honorable, white opponents. A clean war, fought by professionals, on a clean battlefield. This 14-year project of standardization has had a legacy far more powerful than its creators could have imagined. These maps and the visual language they perfected became the foundation for how the Civil War was taught and understood for the next century. Cadets at West Point studied them. Historians reproduced them in their books. And when you visit a national battlefield park today, the map you get from the visitor center is a direct descendant of these 1890s surveys. The story you are told, of Unit X moving to Position Y to assault Objective Z, is the story these maps were designed to tell. They are invaluable historical documents. They are masterpieces of cartography. They are a testament to a remarkable federal project. They are also powerful ideological artifacts. They are tools that shape memory.